Okay, a quick disclaimer here before we get into this. I played just about the entirety of this game on my Lenovo Legion Go, and it took every ounce of power that thing had to make this game run. Battery life was like less than an hour, and it was like the maxed out power delivery, as well as the settings of the game were as low as they could possibly go. So by nature of that, don't exactly have a lot of footage of this. I did record some, but to be quite honest, it's subpar. But luckily on YouTube, there's a channel called MK Ice and Fire. They uploaded a complete playthrough of this game. It's a 17-hour long video. So I'm using this video, their video, for a lot of my footage. Their watermark is in the corner. I acknowledge that, and I want to also link to their channel in the description below. So that way, if you like what you see, you can head over to their channel and do more, watch more. But thank you, Ice and Fire, for uploading this, and I appreciate this video so much. But all footage you are seeing of the game is their footage and from their channel. So Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is simultaneously more enjoyable for me than I thought it would be, while also not being as good as I was hoping. When this game dropped, to say it took the gaming world by storm would be an understatement. A wildly stylish JRPG that comes from France, not even Japan, with an amazing, touching story, great characters, and engaging combat, all from the debut game from a new studio. I saw footage and whatnot, and with me being a little bit of a smooth brain and JRPGs generally not being my thing due to their complicated systems and turn-based combat, I figured it wasn't for me. But even I am not immune to hype, and with every online personality I watch praising it up, down, and my own personal friends saying it's kind of something special, I began to teeter on the edge of playing it. But then came the thing that really tipped the scale for me. On June 21st, about 2 months after the game came out, Ralph and the Skill Up team dropped a feature-length documentary on the creation of Clair Obscur. I have it linked in the description if you want to check it out, but it's a long one. It's like an hour 45, I think. And my main takeaway from that film/video was the fact that just about every key player on the Sandfall Interactive team has realistically never made a game before, at least not one of this caliber. And I've always been a big believer that a resume tells maybe 5% of the story, and that people are far more capable of things than a piece of paper says they are. So I gave into the hype and wanted to show my respect to the Sandfall team because their story very much resonated with me. Like SkillUp said, the term Clair Obscur refers to a French painting technique that roughly translates to light-dark, and essentially boils down to very sharp contrast in the painting between the light and the dark. Which personally sums up the first sentence I said quite well. This is the tale of two games. For me personally, based on the games I usually play, Expedition 33 was more enjoyable than I thought it would be. The light. But given the hype and everything I've seen about this game, it also wasn't quite as good as I was hoping for, the dark. But just like in the paintings that use this French technique, that isn't a bad thing, as the two can coexist harmoniously on the same canvas.
He hasn't steered us wrong yet. But we're a team now, and we won't get very far if we don't trust each other.
Clair Obscur Expedition 33 was developed by Sandfall Interactive, published by Kepler Interactive, and is released on April 24th, 2025 for PS5, Xbox Series consoles, and Windows PCs. So I actually played like 99% of Expedition 33 on my Lenovo Legion Go. I had to customize the settings in my Lenovo to push as much power as possible, even more than the performance profile would push, and I had to have the settings for the game at the lowest they could go across the board, and I averaged like 60 frames per second, and the battery life of my Lenovo would last less than an hour when doing this. But with these things in mind, me personally, I would call Expedition 33 playable on that machine. And Clair Obscur Expedition 33 You play as a group of what are essentially soldiers, known as expeditioners. At this point in time, they are on Expedition 33, the 68th expedition. They have gone backwards, starting at whatever number, I think 100. I don't know, this game is game review, not fucking math class. And every yearly expedition has had one goal: slay the paintress. Someone who paints an ever-decreasing number every year that kills everyone at or above that age. And with this going on for years now, Expedition 33 is feeling the pressure of this mission as the population of the city of Lumiere, the place that feels the impact of the paintress, now has an ever-dwindling population. And at this point in the game, hope is all but lost if Expedition 33 can't pull off this mission. But with 68 failed expeditions, it is clear that this mission is not for the faint of heart, and with the members of Expedition 33 soon not only feel the weight of this responsibility, but also have to deal with the possibility of losing their own lives, as the hazards they come across this journey are many and dangerous. The first thing I want to talk about with this game is the combat. As you have seen throughout the video, it is obviously turn-based, which usually isn't my cup of tea, as I much prefer real-time combat. However, this game puts a little spin on the combat that makes it much more tolerable to me, and that is the ability to dodge and or parry attacks. In my experience, damn near every single attack can be parried or dodged. Dodging an attack I feel like is pretty straightforward. When the enemy attacks, you hit the dodge button at the right time and safely avoid the attack. Or if you are feeling particularly cat-like with your reflexes, you can forego the, in comparison, large timing window of a dodge in favor of a much smaller timing window and parry an attack, and if completed successfully, you will perform a powerful counterattack. Which means in this turn-based game, if you are on top of your shit, you can go an entire fight, or in theory, I guess, the entire game, without ever taking a single hit, which I really like. That was always my main issue with turn-based combat, was when it's the enemy's turn, I had no choice but to see what they would do and beg for mercy from the RNG gods. But in Expedition 33, that is not the case, and it kept combat very interesting. Several times I was clinging on for dear life, but then I could lock in and claw myself to victory thanks to dodging and parrying. But what this game also did was kind of open my eyes a bit to see just how many games are kind of turn-based combat. Let's take the first example that sprung into my head, South of Midnight, link in description. The boss fights in this game function very classically in the same sense that you have to just kind of run around and dodge their attacks while you wait for an obvious time to strike. And that got me thinking, is that really that much different than what we get in Expedition 33 or even other turn-based games? And that same thinking I feel like can be applied to other real-time combat games. You dodge, 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 or parry, 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 and wait for your opportunity to strike. The only difference is Expedition 33 makes it more structured. So not only did this game surprise me with how much I liked its combat, it made me much more willing to try out turn-based combat in the future, so long as they adopt a similar dodge or parry system. But one thing I wasn't that big of a fan of when it came to combat was how many systems were at play. Now let me make one thing clear. This is an issue with me more than it is the game. But all I can do is report on my experiences with the game. And in my experience, I had trouble keeping up with all the systems and whatnot in the game. Each character has their own, almost mini-game type thing to play during combat. You have to assign Pictos and unlock their passive abilities, and then use Luminas to assign these passive abilities to other characters. And it was just kind of a lot, and for me, it was a bit of information overload. It took me half the game to figure out how to use Lune to her maximum potential, and still, even after finishing the game, there is one character who I still don't have completely figured out. This is one reason why I typically have no interest in JRPGs, and even most Souls and Souls-like games. They are interlaced with so many intricate systems and stats and whatnot that I struggle to keep up with everything going on. But again, I acknowledge that I am just too smooth-brained for this, and this is more of an issue with me than any of the games. So I say this is less of a, hey, this part of the game is bad, and more so as a, if you are really turned off by complex game systems, this might not be the game for you. But what had me turned on and absolutely bricked up when I played this game was Lune. Nah, I'm kidding. Am I though? But the story and writing had me about to act up, that's for sure. The story of this game was the main aspect of it and was the driving force behind me wanting to play it. When I play a single player game, I obviously want everything to be great, but I'd probably be willing to put up with some boring / bad gameplay if the story is being told good enough. And not that Expedition 33 had bad gameplay by any means, but I believe the story being told here is something great and made even better by some great characters and amazing voice acting. Towards the end of the game, some stuff was kind of getting lost in the fog for me, but I had at least a moderate understanding of everything happening at all times. And the game actually has several endings to it. Don't worry, no spoilers. But if I had a better understanding of certain things at the end, I definitely would have chose some things differently. But even not at the end and along the journey, there were several emotional bits, both sad and happy, some shocking moments, and some great character interactions. Not all key characters are created equal in my mind, but even the least best of them are still voice acted brilliantly and written well enough to add to the story and not detract from it. And quick note before we move on here on the subject of characters, Gustav, one of the main characters of the game, look at him. All I can see is Robert Pattinson in the lighthouse, and like that's all I could see when I looked at him. I'm fairly certain he had was not a face model or anything for this, but that's all I can see. Let me know in the comments if you see it too, or I'm just a fucking lunatic. But something that definitely didn't detract from the experience was the music of this game. A soundtrack so varied, so expertly done, so uniquely crafted to not distract from the moments on screen, but enhance them through way of your speakers or headphones. Most video game music has a theme or a common genre, like the previously mentioned South of Midnight, with a focus on Cajun music, or Doom games usually focusing on heavy metal or intense techno music. Not that that's a bad thing by any means, especially in the case of Doom. Those soundtracks are typically amazing, especially Eternal, holy shit. But there's something special about the Expedition 33 soundtrack. As I listened through the OST, which is an astounding 8 hours long, so I'm not listening through all of it by any means, but many songs I hear as I listen through this take me back to where I was in the game. I close my eyes and I am whisked away to a battle or a set piece I experienced within this quirky but astounding French world, which I believe is some of the greatest praise you can give a soundtrack, and one reason why I always prioritize sound over image when consuming digital media. When I'm looking at art, don't get me wrong, I feel things sometimes and, whatnot. But with sound and music, I do not just feel things, I am transported. I can close my eyes and envision what the music is telling me. Not only what story the song is telling, but how I am interpreting that story. And when you hear music and it enhances a scene in a game or a movie so amazingly well, I can close my eyes and transport myself to that same situation as before and relive the experiences without ever needing to open my eyes or pick up a controller. And Expedition 33's music does just that. Truly, kind of an all-time Hall of Fame soundtrack at the very least. Other than the story getting a little foggy at times and a small maze of systems, the only real complaint I have is that I feel is more objective than personal opinion, is the lack of the ability to restart a fight quickly and in the middle of it. Partway through my playthrough, a patch was issued that allowed you to restart a fight right away if you lost, but other than that, my only option was to reload my last save or allow my opponents to kill me in an effort to expedite the retry screen appearing. I know I said earlier that I clawed my way to victory when it seemed victory was fleeting, but there were also times when victory outright ran away from me immediately and I wanted to restart quite early, but had no choice but one of the previously mentioned options. Maybe they purposely omitted this in an effort to encourage players to soldier on and reach for victory when defeat seems all but certain, but sometimes defeat seems a little too certain and I would like to restart sooner rather than later. Wrapping things up here, as I was typing out this script and listening to the soundtrack at the same time, it occurred to me that I think I actually like this game more than I originally thought, but I maintain that it wasn't quite as good as I was hoping. Given the reception and love for this game, I wouldn't be shocked in the slightest if this game was on many people's all-timer lists. But for me, that is not the case. Although this game did many things right, and as much as I liked the story and characters, something was missing for me personally. There are other games, stories, and characters that have touched me more, like Red Dead Redemption 2 or God of War Ragnarok. But make no mistake, all because this game is not an all-time great for me, does not mean I am blind to the achievement it is, as most of my gripes come down to personal preference rather than objective good or bad. For a game to come out like this, from a team with largely no development experience, making such a finely crafted game that is so unique and well received is not something that should be dismissed. And I view the game as a metaphor for the studio itself. Much like the Expeditioners, the odds were stacked against Sandfall. They were setting out on what many probably perceived as a hopeless mission. A game of that size with no real experience, yeah, that won't happen. This is going to be your studio's debut game. Good luck with that. But also, like the Expeditioners, they knew they could do it. Unlikely? Maybe. But if you believe in yourself like the Expeditioners did, like Sandfall did, anything is possible. I was listening to either the Friends Per Second podcast or the Game Informer show, one of the two, and someone in one of those shows, I believe, was quoting someone else and said something along the lines of, "When developing video games, never make your dream game your first game, because odds are your skill set will not be able to match whatever you have in your mind." And although that does make a lot of sense and I think is a pretty good rule of thumb generally, Sandfall proves there are exceptions to every rule. And if Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is not the studio's dream game, Lord have mercy on other studios when they do release their dream game.